Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Hello everyone, I welcome you to the course Nursing Research and Statistics, the first lecture Introduction to Nursing Research. I am Dr. Harmeet Kaur Kang, Principal Chitkara School of Health Sciences, Chitkara University, Punjab. The objectives of today's lecture are, at the end of this lecture, students will be able to define the nursing research, discuss the importance of nursing research, explain the sources of nursing research, and understand the key terminologies which are used in nursing research. So let us introduce the topic that why nursing research is needed. This time is very exciting and challenging time to be a nurse. Why I have said exciting and as well as I said challenging. It is very challenging to work in the healthcare system where nowadays number of new diseases are coming up and number of new guidelines are coming up, and even consumers are really knowledgeable, they are informative. So nurses have a challenging time to work in the clinical area. So whenever they are working in the clinical area, they are responsible for providing the quality care to the patients, and they require an extraordinary range of skills and talents. Nurses are always expected to deliver the highest possible quality of care in a compassionate manner, while also being mindful of costs. It means whatever nursing action they are performing in the clinical area, they are expected that whatever actions they are performing, it should result in the positive outcome, and they should be providing the nursing care in the compassionate manner, but at the same time they have to take care of the costs. So nurses are answerable to the consumers, they are answerable to the healthcare system, they are answerable to the third party, means insurance companies, and they are answerable to the government. So nurses must be lifelong learner, and they should be capable of reflecting on, evaluate and modify their clinical practice based upon the new knowledge. So from where they get this new knowledge? They get this new knowledge from the nursing research. Nursing research, particularly which is rigorous and need-based, it provides the evidence for the best clinical care or best clinical decision-making interventions which can provide the best outcomes. But at the same time, when the nurses are users of nursing research, there is need for producers of nursing research also. So that is why at undergraduate level also there is need for studying the nursing research, so that you students should be able to conduct the research study when you will be working in the clinical area. Okay, now let us talk about what is research. Research is a systematic inquiry that uses disciplined methods to answer questions or solve problems. So you should be able to see that if we are having any question or any problems and we want the answers, then we use a systematic inquiry. And this systematic inquiry uses disciplined methods. It means it is not a trial and error. Through trial and error or through haphazard methods, we do not get the answers, but research is a systematic inquiry. And the ultimate aim of the nursing research is to provide a knowledge base. So the ultimate goal of the research is to develop, refine and expand a body of knowledge. So just for your remembrance, it is a systematic process plus it expands the knowledge base. So this is called research. Now let us talk about nursing research. So nursing research is a systematic inquiry which is designed to develop knowledge about issues of importance to nursing profession. So whenever we are having any question or issue or problem which is related to the nursing profession, and then we use the systematic inquiry to get that answer, that is known as nursing research. Now the issues can be of nursing practice when we are working in the clinical area. It can be related to the nursing education, it can be related to the administration, or it can be related to the informatics. Now let us talk about what is clinical nursing research. So the name only says that it is the research which is designed to generate knowledge to guide nursing practice and to improve the health and quality of life of nurses' clients. So here clinical nursing research is basically the research which we conduct in the clinical area, which is related to the nursing practice in the clinical area, so that the end outcome of the research should be to improve the health and the quality of life of nurses' clients. So nurses' clients are the patients whom the nurses are taking care. Now I would like to give you one example of nursing research. What are the factors that determine the length of stay of patients in the intensive care unit undergoing coronary artery bypass graft surgery? So this is an example where the researchers are trying to find out that which factors affect the length of the stay of patients in the ICU after coronary artery bypass graft. So the main aim of this study is that how the length of the stay of patients can be decreased. So this is a typical type of a clinical nursing research. Now let us talk about the sources of evidence for nursing practice. Mostly for our nursing practice, we rely upon number of sources for the evidence, and majority of the sources of evidence are based upon a tradition. Tradition means we might be following some nursing actions which are being followed from many years, and if you talk to your senior nurses, then they always say that we are using this method from many years and it is useful and we are going to use it. But we cannot say that whatever methods which we are using based upon our tradition, whether those are the valid methods which are really providing the desired outcomes or not. Second is authority. Authority means for any type of query or for any type of doubt in our nursing practice, we go and ask the senior persons. So in the clinical area, if we have any confusion about any practice to be followed, then we go to the senior nurses. But whenever we are using the authority, we have to take care that the person who is providing the information, he should have the up-to-date and expert knowledge in that area. Third is clinical experience, trial and error, and intuition. So it means we learn through our experiences. So the person, when he or she works in the clinical area, then the person tries to observe and the person sees that this particular intervention I have used for many times and I have seen that this has resulted in the good outcome. So it means they are usually learning through trial and error or through intuition. Through intuition, if I feel that this particular action if I will be using, then definitely I am going to get a positive outcome. So but these are not the good methods to be used as the sources of evidence for nursing practice, because if we talk about the clinical experience, these are the subjective experience. One person may take that experience in a different way from the other. So clinical experience cannot be taken as a very valid source of evidence for nursing practice. Third is logical reasoning. Logical reasoning is that we observe something and we use our thoughtful processes for providing the logic to use any intervention in the clinical area. So logical reasoning can be inductive or deductive. Inductive means if we are like for example, a new nurse sees that whenever any new child is coming to the OPD, and if mother is not near the child, then the person becomes anxious or the child becomes anxious. So it means from her observation she understands that if mother is not nearby, the child experiences the separation anxiety. So that is a type of inductive learning, that through the small observations we can generalize some particular phenomena. Deductive is that whatever is already known, based upon that we can predict something. So if we know that separation anxiety is there, then the nurse may say that whosoever child is coming, if child is in the clinical area or in the ward alone, then any child who will be admitted will be having the separation anxiety. So this is a type of deductive reasoning. So we can use the logical reasoning in the clinical area for our nursing practice. Then is assembled information. Assembled information means we get the information from various sources about some diseases. Like for example, there are so many government agencies which provide us the information about the prevalence or incidence of some diseases, or in the hospital we are having the sources which provide us that maybe in the last year how many days or length of the stay was there for the patient, and what were the complications which were there which occurred in our hospital or in our area. So these particular can provide us information, but this type of information does not provide us the ways that how can we improve the clinical practices so that we can improve the health outcome. So the best way or best source of evidence for the nursing practice is always a disciplined research. So disciplined research always is conducted based upon some problems or some issues which we are finding, which may be some particular interventions, or we are finding that some interventions are not providing the desired outcomes, then we can go for the disciplined research. Disciplined research means rigorous researches, and through that, after conducting those researches, we get some findings. Those findings can become the evidence for nursing practice. So this is the best evidence, because through the research, through rigorous researches on bigger sample size in different settings, through replication of the nursing research, we can get the clear and best evidence which can result in the best clinical decision making, and further it can result in the better outcomes in the health of our patients. Okay, now after the sources, now let us discuss about the importance of nursing research. By now you might have understood the importance of nursing research. The first and foremost, just now I was talking about, is evidence-based nursing practice. Nowadays, there is so much of emphasis on the evidence-based practice. Means whatever nursing actions or interventions we are following in our clinical practices, those should be based upon the best evidence. So what is that best evidence? That best available evidence is always based upon the nursing research. So number of nursing researches, if are conducted on a particular area, and it tells us that these research studies, these nursing interventions are resulting in the best outcome, then whatever nursing interventions we will be performing in the clinical area can provide the best outcomes. So it results in the best clinical decision making and positive outcomes. So this best clinical decision making helps us to improve the health and quality of our patients through the positive outcomes. Second is, nursing research helps in reinforcement of nursing as a profession. Many of the people, they don't know that nurses are involved in research, whereas we know that all our nursing actions or interventions or whatever guidelines we follow in the clinical area, those are based upon the best evidence or best clinical guidelines which are available. So if we nurses conduct the nursing researches, we can be producers of the nursing research, and we can broaden the knowledge base for our nursing profession. So nursing research is very, very important for reinforcing the nursing as a profession. Another third important thing is that nursing research helps in eliminating the nursing actions that do not achieve desired outcomes. So obviously, maybe sometimes when we are working in the clinical area, many times it comes in our mind that why these nursing actions we are performing when these are not giving us desired outcome. So the best thing is that if you see that there are some actions or some interventions which are being used in the clinical area and you feel that these are not providing the desired outcomes, then if nursing research is conducted, then we can remove those particular nursing actions through in our nursing practice. So which will result in improving the health outcomes, so that we can replace those nursing actions which are not providing the desired outcomes with the nursing actions which are providing the better healthcare outcomes, and which in turn will provide the positive outcomes, but at the same time which is helping in containing the cost. So overall, the nursing research can help in improving the health outcomes through the nursing actions which are providing the health outcomes, positive health outcomes, but at the same time which are affordable to the patients. Through the nursing research, we get to know about the unknown phenomena about which little is known. So because when we don't know much, we identify that phenomena through the nursing research, and those particular unknown phenomena, if we are getting to know through the nursing research, it can help us in planning of the nursing care, because we get to know that particular disease might be affected by these things, or these factors are responsible for that. Or if we explain certain phenomena, that what causes certain phenomena, this knowledge can help us in planning of the nursing care. And through that, we can predict the probable outcome, that if I am performing this particular nursing intervention, it will result in better outcome. Or we can also control the occurrence of undesired outcomes, because now we have the guidelines available which are based upon the evidence from the nursing research. So when we know that these are the undesired outcomes, if I'm performing this particular intervention, then I can control the occurrence of those undesired outcomes. Okay, now after the importance, let us talk about what are the purposes of nursing research. So with which purposes we use the nursing research? First and foremost is identification. Identification means we get to know that what is the phenomena. Many a times in the clinical area or in the community or in the education, there are so many concepts or phenomena about which we don't know much. Maybe sometimes in our mind there might be some question about some diseases, that we are teaching the patient about the medicines, compliance, we are teaching the patient about behavioral changes which are needed, but why this patient is not doing this? what is behind that, what are the reasons for that. So sometimes some phenomena are not known. Particularly qualitative research helps us to identify the phenomena about which we don't know much. Whereas in the quantitative type of the research, usually we know the phenomena and then we go for the nursing research. I just want to give an example for identification. So this is a study on patients with diabetes and hypertension to discover the basic social problem that affect the adherence to healthcare directives. So here healthcare directives are the health education which we provide to the patients, that they have to follow these, but many a times there are no adherences. So then this particular study, through this study, they got to know that why these patients do not follow the adherence, and what is the basic social problem behind that. So this is a type of identification of the basic social problem that affect the adherence to healthcare directives. Next purpose is description. Description means here about a phenomena we try to describe. For example, the quantitative research tells us that how prevalent is the phenomena, how often does the phenomena occur, and what are the characteristics of the phenomena. So everything about that phenomena is described, and this is an important purpose of the nursing research. I would like to give you one example of this. This is a study to describe the psychological changes up to 6 months after coronary artery bypass graft surgery among patients with coronary artery disease. So here the researcher tried to describe that what type of psychological changes take place in the patient who undergoes the CABG. So this is a type of a descriptive study. Another purpose is exploration. Exploration is further, in description we are just describing, but in exploration we are exploring more about that particular phenomena and those factors we are trying to explore which we are not knowing. So exploration means what factors are related to the phenomena, or what are the antecedents of this the phenomena, means what are the factors which are affecting the occurrence of this phenomena, and what are the factors which are related to the phenomena. So that is the exploration. So here one example is there, that Ranald and Nedig, they studied the incidence and severity of nausea accompanying combinative antiretroviral therapy among HIV infected patients. So antiretroviral therapy, the patients who were getting, so among them, first thing is they studied the incidence and severity. So it means this is a description. But second part if you see is the explored the patterns of nausea in relation to patient characteristics. So they try to explore further that what are the patterns and whether it is related to the patient's characteristics, and what type of patient's characteristics might be resulting in certain patterns of nausea. So this is exploratory type of study. So this is the one purpose of the research, that is exploration. Another purpose is explanation. Explanation is further explaining about the phenomena, that what are the measurable associations between the phenomena, and what are the factors which cause those phenomena, and does the theory explain the phenomena. So we try to explain more about the phenomena, that how is it occurring, why is it occurring, and what are the measurable associations between the phenomena, whether any other phenomena is causing this particular phenomena, or it is happening because of certain other factors. So we try to explain about that phenomena. So one example of this is that these researchers, they tested a model to explain exercise behavior among older adults on the basis of social support, age, and self-efficacy expectation. So here they have used the explanatory research. So they try to explain the exercise behavior of the older adults and how it is based upon the social support which they are getting. Older adults, whether the persons who are getting better social support, they had a different exercise behavior than the persons who were having lower social support, and whether it is also associated with age or their own self-efficacy expectation. So this is a type of explanatory research where the authors or researchers, they try to explain the exercise behavior of the older adults. Another important purpose of the nursing research is prediction. Prediction means we try to predict that what will happen if we alter the phenomena or introduce an intervention. So particularly we try to predict in the quantitative studies where we are using experimental designs. Experimental designs means where we are introducing some interventions. So if we are changing something or we are altering the phenomena, how is it affecting the other phenomena? So if phenomena X occurs, will phenomena Y follow? So if one particular phenomena is changed or it is happening, how it is affecting the other phenomena. For example, these researchers, they use the neonatal data to predict the academic performance and need for special services among school-age children who had been in a level 3 neonatal intensive care unit. So here the researchers, they use the neonatal data which was available to them, and through that they predicted that whether the neonates who are admitted in the intensive care unit, what type of special services they will be needing, and whether their academic performances can be predicted through this neonatal data. So through the neonatal data they predicted the academic performance, and then they try to provide the information that what type of need for special services these children are needed in the school. So this is a type of prediction. Now the last and very important purpose of nursing research is control. So control means if we know that some phenomena or some undesired outcomes are there, then how can we alter the nature or the prevalence of those undesired outcomes? So maybe some prevention of some diseases or prevention of certain phenomena. So how can we make the phenomena happen or alter its nature or prevalence? Can the occurrence of phenomena be prevented or controlled? So we try to find out the interventions which can help in prevention or control of the occurrence of those undesired phenomena. Example of this control is a prospective study to assess the effectiveness of nutritional program on prevention of malnutrition among under 5 children. So here, for the prevention of malnutrition, they have tried to control the nutrition of the patient. So they try to find out that if nutritional program is provided to the under 5 children, whether the malnutrition can be prevented and how it can be prevented, and whether this nutritional program is effective or not. So this is an example of the control. So these are the purposes of the nursing research. So till now we have discussed the introduction to nursing research. What is clinical nursing research? What is the evidence? And what is the importance and the purposes of nursing research? Now let us talk about the key terminologies which are used in the nursing research. Now whenever we are doing a research study, there are two types of persons involved in this. One is who is conducting the research and one who are providing us the information. So the person who contribute the information, they are called subject or respondent in case of quantitative study. So in case of quantitative study, particularly uh, uh, the respondents, because they are providing us the information through questionnaire or we interview them and they provide us the information, so they are called the respondent. And in case of experimental studies, we uh, do some intervention and we make some changes for those people, so those are known as subjects. But whenever we are talking about qualitative study, we call them as participants, because in qualitative study, the persons who are contributing the information, they are actively participating in the research study. So that is why they are known as participant. So you should remember that the persons who contribute the information, they may be called as subject, respondent, or participant. Now the person who undertake the research study, the person can be called as researcher or investigator. You may come across some studies where they might have used the word principal investigator or co-investigator. So the principal investigator is a person who is the lead researcher in any research study. So sometimes the study can be conducted by a group of people or a team. That is known as a collaborative research or collaborative team. So in that team, who is the lead researcher is known as the principal investigator, and the other persons who are helping him to conduct the research are known as co-investigators. Now that which is being investigated, what is that for which we are doing a research study? So those are known as variable, concept, or construct. So these are the main phenomena or the concepts, or you can say these are the abstract terms which we are studying in our research study. So construct is even more abstraction than the concept. We will be discussing about this in detail. Now, the information which we gather through our research study is known as data. And the connection between the concepts. When we do a study, we might be having the 2 or 3 variables or concepts which we are studying. So, the connection between them is known as relationship. Now, the relationship can be cause and effect relationship or a functional relationship. Cause and effect relationship means if there are 2 variables, means one might be the effect and other might be the cause. So one variable might be causing the change in the other variable. Then through the research study, we get to know that exactly this particular variable is making some change in the other variable. Then that type of relationship is known as cause and effect relationship. But when we are not sure whether it is cause and effect relationship or simple it is associated. For example, if I can say I have conducted a study and I get to know that the knowledge of the people who are educated, they are having better knowledge. So here there is some relationship between the educational status and the knowledge, but we cannot say that education caused the increase in the knowledge. This is just a type of relationship. So that is known as the functional relationship. Now, what is quality of evidence? Why do we conduct the research? We conduct the research to find out the truth about any phenomena. So, if we want to find out the truth, then our study should have a really good evidence, really the evidence which is of quality. So, always we need to strive for the best evidence, means whatever findings we are giving through our research study, those should be the true findings. There should not be any biasness in those findings. So how do we check the quality of evidence? That is checked through different methods. We go for reliability check, we go for validity check, we check the generalizability of the study, we check the objectivity of the study. We will be discussing these all concepts in detail. Okay, Now let us talk about data first of all. So what is data? Data are the singular, in single form we can call it as datum, but when we are getting pieces of information, then that is known as data. So data are the pieces of information obtained in the course of investigation. Quantitative researchers collect primary quantitative data, that is, information is in numeric form. So whenever we are collecting the quantitative data, so our information which we get is always in the numeric form. But when we talk about the qualitative data, there we do the in-depth interviews, or we collect the in-depth information. So there mainly our data is the narrative description. Now another key term is research setting. Nurse researchers conduct the research in a number of areas. They may conduct the research in hospital, in different areas such as community. They can conduct in a nursing education institution. So these are the areas where the research study is conducted. And what is the site? So site is overall location of the research. It could be an entire community or an institution within the community. So what is site? Site is overall where we are conducting the study. So for example, based upon my research question, I need to collect the data from a hospital. So if I am collecting data only from one big hospital, that hospital may become my site. Or my research question might be needing that I should collect the data from a village. So then village becomes overall location, or it can be called as the site. Now what is the setting? Setting are the more specific place where the data collection occurs. So mainly whenever we have to collect the data, we need to be clear that whatever data we are getting, the person should be comfortable in providing us data. For example, if you want to get a questionnaire filled, you have to provide them some space so that they can sit and fill your questionnaire. If you go to the hospital OPD and you want to collect there, then in OPD you would select a specific room where you can ask them to sit and give you the information. Okay, so the OPD can become your setting. Or in a hospital, you are conducting a study on nurses, so you want to collect the data from the nurses who are working in ICU. So then ICU becomes your setting. Another concept in the setting is naturalistic setting versus laboratory setting. Naturalistic setting means naturally the settings where the subjects are comfortable. Means, for example, if you want to collect the data in a village, so home is their natural setting. But if you are collecting the data in the hospital, for example in OPD, or when the patient is admitted in the hospital, then that can be called as a semi-naturalistic setting, because that is not a natural setting for your subjects. Then what is laboratory setting? Laboratory setting is a complete laboratory type of studies, right? So where, for example, we conduct some histopathological tests, we conduct some studies on how the viral load increases, or some studies which are conducted on guinea pigs or rats in the laboratory. That particular setting is known as pure laboratory setting. But particularly for our nursing studies, we use either naturalistic setting or semi-naturalistic settings. Okay, I'll give you some examples for the settings. So if we take this example, a qualitative assessment of life skill development of adolescent girls through Kishori Panchayat, an adolescent for health action model in selected villages of rural central India. So now here, what is your setting? Setting is the village of the rural central India. So village becomes your research setting. Then another example, an exploratory study of cannabis use pattern and treatment seeking in patients attending an addiction treatment facility. So here you are setting for this research study is an addiction treatment facility. Okay, now very important concept, that is variable. So variables are the main phenomena or concept on which you are conducting the study, right? So for example, you want to study in a nursing education institution, you want to study the effect of blended learning on the knowledge or skill of the students. So now your variable here is the important concepts which you are studying. So one concept which you are studying in this example is blended learning, another is your knowledge, and the third one is skill. So these are the important concepts which you are studying. So that those are the variables on which you are conducting the research study. But what is the exact definition of the variable? So variable is something that varies. For example, weight, anxiety level, income, and body temperature. So now variable is always something which changes, right? So which changes, for example, weight can change for one person also, and weight can vary from one person to another person. At the same time, if you will check the weight of one girl and another girl, there might be a difference. So this is not a constant, right? Same way, anxiety levels can increase or decrease based upon the situation. Okay, if everyone weighed 50 kg, will we call it as a variable? No, we will not call it as a variable, because if everyone weighs 50 kg, it means it is not varying, it is not changing, so it will be called as constant. If anything, any concept or phenomena which do not vary, which is constant, there is no need to conduct the research study, because research we are collecting only on those variables which can change. Okay, these are the examples. Like first one is nutritional status of adolescent girls belonging to a tea garden estate of Sivasagar district, Assam, India. So nutritional status here in this study is your variable. Now nutritional status of adolescent girls may vary. Some girls might be having good nutritional status and some might be having low nutritional status. Further, if a same girl who was having low nutritional status, if you provide them some good nutrition, then their status can increase. So that is called a variable which is changing. Another example is effectiveness of turmeric mouthwash on oral mucositis. Now, how the turmeric mouthwash is affecting the incidence of oral mucositis, right? So turmeric mouthwash is one variable and oral mucositis is another variable. Third one is study to assess the prevalence of asthma among patients residing in metropolitan cities, impact of air pollution. So here there are two variables. So one variable is prevalence of asthma. Now second is the air pollution. Now why are we calling these as variables? Because air pollution in these metropolitan cities may be high or low, and it might be resulting in the change in the prevalence of asthma in those cities, right? So asthma's prevalence might be high or low depending upon the level of the pollution. So these are also the variables. Another example which I have already given you, effectiveness of blended learning on knowledge and clinical decision making skills of nursing students. So here blended learning, knowledge and clinical decision making skills are also variables. Now variables can be of different types. So let us discuss about all types of the variables. First is continuous variables. So these variables, this type of variable usually we study in case of the quantitative studies when we are having the numerical variables, right? So the continuous variable is the value that can be represented on a continuum, or a continuous variable can assume an infinite number of values between 2 points, right? So example I have given the weight between 50 to 51 kg. Like one person may be having exact 50 kg weight, Another person might be having 50.12, 50.2, 50.3. So there are infinite number of values which are lying between 2 points, right? In between 50 and 51 there might be number of values lying. Such type of variable is known as continuous variable. Another example I'll give you, the marks in a exam, particularly multiple choice question where negative marking is also there. So the marks may vary. There might be number of people who might be having the marks between 10 to 11, maybe 10.5, 10.6, 10.7, right? So this is also a continuous variable. Now what is a discrete variable? Discrete variable is one that has finite number of values between any 2 points. So here we are having either 1, 2, 3. If I talk about how many values are lying between 1 and 3, then there is only one value, that is 2. So there are finite number values only. In between 2 points there is no other value lying. So for example, I ask from a subject that how many children you have. That person may answer 1, 2, 3 or none, right? So does it make sense if the person will say 1.5? It will not make any sense. So such type of variables are known as the discrete variables. Another type of variable is categorical variable. Categorical variable name only says that there are categories of the variables. So that takes on only a handful of discrete non-quantitative values. So now these are non-quantitative values. Here we are not giving any numeric value to it, right? For example, gender. For gender we can give two categories. It can be male, female, right? Then blood type, 4 categories, A, B, AB, O. So when we are having specific categories which are not in the quantitative form, those are known as the categorical variables. Now if we are having two values for these categories, then these are known as dichotomous values. Dichotomous, for example, we ask the status of pregnancy, the person may respond pregnant, not pregnant. Or we ask the status of HIV, the person may be HIV positive or HIV negative. So when there are two values, then those are the dichotomous variables. Another important classification of variable is active versus attribute variable. Attribute variable are those variables which are characteristics of the research subjects, such as their age, their health belief or weight, or even their marital status or educational qualification. So these are the characteristics of the research subjects in which the researcher is not able to make any change. Whereas the active variable are those variables which the researcher creates. For example, salt intake of different amount for different group of patients. So here the researcher made the change in the amount of the salt intake for different group of the patients. So here it is an active variable. Same variable can be an active variable for one study and an attribute variable for another study. So for the same example which I have given for the active variable, the salt intake of different amounts, now here it is an active variable, but it can be attribute variable if the researcher just collects the data that how much salt the patients are taking in a day. So there the researcher is not making any change but just collecting the information that how much they are taking every day. So then it becomes their characteristic. So that becomes an attribute variable. So any variable can be an active variable in one study, can be an attribute variable in another study. This is an example of a study where these all are the attribute variables. These are also attribute variable because here the patient has just taken the information from the patients that regarding their alcohol use. But this particular variable could have been the active variable if the researcher might have changed the amount of the alcohol intake or timing of the alcohol intake. So then it can become an active variable. Very important classification is independent variable versus dependent variable. Independent variable is a variable which is taken as a presumed cause, and dependent variable is taken as presumed effect. So if any researcher is studying two concept or two variable, if one variable is causing the change in another variable, then the variable which is causing the change is independent variable, and the variable which is changing because of the independent variable is the dependent variable. So example is effectiveness of motivational counseling on behavioral change among patients diagnosed with coronary artery disease. So here the motivational counseling is the independent variable because it is changing the behavior of the patient. So behavioral change becomes the dependent variable. Another example for the independent and dependent variable study is, first one is, what is the effect of timing of an initial bath on body temperature? So here timing of an initial bath is an independent variable because if the timing is changed, it may affect the body temperature of the newborn. So body temperature may increase or decrease because of the timing of an initial bath. So independent variable is timing of an initial bath and dependent variable is body temperature. Another example is, does a nursing intervention cause more rapid recovery? So here nursing intervention is independent variable and recovery is the dependent variable. Another key terminology which we use in the research is heterogeneity versus homogeneity. Heterogeneous means when an attribute is extremely varied in the group under investigation, the group is said to be heterogeneous with respect to that variable. For example, if we take a sample of 100 persons, check the variable age. Maybe the sample might be having the subjects of the age 10 to 20. They may have the persons between the age of 20 to 30, 30 to 40, 40 to 50. So they may have the persons who are having the varied age. So we will say that this particular group is heterogeneous with respect to the variable age. Then what is homogeneous? Homogeneous is when any variable is not varying much. So if the amount of variability is limited, then that particular group is known to be known as homogeneous. For example, for the variable height, a group of 2 years old children is likely to be more homogeneous than a group of 18 years old adolescents. So if we take 2 years old children, then their height may not be varying much. So then we will say that the group of 2 years old children are homogeneous in respect to their variable height. Whereas if we take the group of 18 years old adolescents, they are heterogeneous in respect to their height because 18 years old adolescents will have varying age, varying height. Another important concept in the nursing research is quality of evidence. Quality of evidence means whatever findings we are getting from our research study, those should be the valid findings, those should be the true findings, which are the findings which are not affected by the biases. There should not be any researcher's bias, there should not be any random or systematic bias. So how the quality of evidence is assessed? It is assessed through different methods. First one is reliability. So reliability refers to the accuracy and consistency of information obtained in a study. It means whether whatever findings of our study are those accurate, are these consistent. The consistency means the findings or information which we are getting should not be changing. And the term is most often associated with the methods used to measure research variables. So the measurements which we use, whether those measurements are consistent, are accurate. For example, if we are using a thermometer or we are using a blood pressure machine for assessing the blood pressure, that machine should not be giving us varied values. If it is giving us varied values every time, then it means this is not a reliable measure. Another important concept is validity. Validity is a more complex concept that broadly concerns the soundness of the study's evidence. It means the findings or the evidence which we have got from our study, are those logical, are those convincing and well grounded? These should not be the wrong findings. That is known as validity. So another important concept is generalizability. The generalizability is the criterion used in quantitative studies to assess the extent to which the findings can be applied to other groups and settings. So generalizability is that whatever findings we have got from our research study, can the same findings be applied to a different group in a different setting? Usually the generalizability can be improved if our quality of evidence is better, right? Quality of evidence means if we have taken care of our methods which we are using, if we have taken a bigger sample, then particularly the generalizability of our research study can be improved. Another important concept is objectivity. Objectivity is the degree to which study results are derived from characteristics of participants and the study context, not from researcher bias. So objectivity is that whatever results which we are getting, are these true results? These results should not be the biased results. These results should not be because because of the researchers' biases or some systematic biases. We will be talking about this in detail. Now examples, first of all let us take the example of reliability. If a thermometer measures X person's temperature as 98.1 degree Fahrenheit 1 minute and as 102.5 degree Fahrenheit the next minute, will we call this thermometer as a reliable? No, we cannot call it as reliable method to assess the temperature, because for the same person at one time it is giving us the temperature as 98.1 and another time 102. So it means this is really changing the measurements. So this is not a reliable method, right? Another example is for the validity, that is, if an instrument for measuring depression is used, is it really measuring depression or something else? So if I am using a scale to measure the depression, it might be having number of items. Are all these items measuring the depression? It should not be measuring stress, it should not be measuring loneliness or anxiety. But if it is measuring only depression, then it will be considered as a valid measure of depression. So whatever measure we are using, is it measuring only that particular variable for which it is meant? It should not be measuring anything else. Then that measure can be called as a valid measure of something, right? Okay, another example is if a study is intended to have implication for males and female patients, then men and women should be included as participants. So for example, if I say that my target population is male and female patients, maybe male and female cancer patients, then I should take care that my participants or subjects should have mix of men and women. And if an intervention is intended to benefit patients in urban and rural hospitals, then perhaps a multi-site study is warranted. So if I'm saying that urban and rural hospital patients both will be benefiting, then I should have good number of people from urban, good number of hospitals from urban areas and rural areas, so that I can generalize my finding on both urban and rural hospitals. So such measures will help in improving the generalizability of the study. Okay, another important key term which we keep on using in the research study is bias. Even I have used many a time when we were talking about quality of evidence. Now, what is bias? Bias is an influence that produces a distortion in the study results, right? Distortion means which can bring about change in the results of the study, which might not be the true changes. Okay, so it can be the distortion or biasness in the study results can result from many things. For example, if we are taking a study sample or the subjects which is a biased sample. Example, I'm doing a research study where I am bringing about some new intervention or new method of teaching, and I want to find out that whether it is having any effect on the improving the knowledge of the students. So if my study sample, if I am biased and I select the study sample of the students who are already very intelligent, who are getting the grades CGPA 8 or 9, and I give them this new method and I say that this new method was able to improve the knowledge of these people because they have got really good results after that. So it means my study sample is a biased sample. It can also result from the wrong methods which we use to measure something, right? So the biasness can be either random or systematic. Usually some bias is always there which we cannot change. So particularly that bias is a random bias. That is, a handful of study participants might fail to provide totally accurate information as a result of extreme fatigue at the time of data were collected. So this is natural. So some people, maybe out of 50, maybe 1 or 2 persons did not provide you accurate information because they were extremely fatigued at the time, and this is known as a random bias. But if it becomes systematic bias, then that is really an important thing which you have to take care in your research study. So systematic bias results when the bias is consistent or uniform, means it is consistent, continuously it is occurring. For example, if a spring scale consistently measures people's weights as being 2 pounds heavier than their true weight, there would be a systematic bias in the data. So it means every time the spring scale I was using, I was getting 2 kg or 2 pound heavier weight than the true weight. So it means this was a systematic bias, and the measurement which I have used was a wrong measurement that can result in a systematic bias in the data. And we should always take care that we should try to reduce the bias in our study, so that whatever findings which we are getting should be the true findings. We should not include the biasness, whether it is researchers bias, it is random bias or systematic bias. It should not be included in our research study, so that our quality of evidence should be a really good evidence. Okay, so let us summarize today's lecture. So today we have discussed about the nursing research, what is the importance and purposes of nursing research, and then we talked about key terminologies which are used in the research, and specifically we talked about data, setting, site, different types of variables, and quality of evidence. And under quality of evidence we talked about reliability, validity, generalizability, objectivity, and how to reduce the biasness. I hope that you have understood all the concepts which we have discussed in this lecture. Now we will be meeting in the next lecture, which will be on the process of quantitative research. Thank you.